After much anticipation, we are finally covering this long-standing model for the Porterverse Workbench. Here is my model of Caitlin. This model has been completed for over a full year now. The reason why I posted the showcase back was because I wanted to have Connor ready as well to showcase them all side by side. But alas, fighting a 464 tender engine for cheap has been proving rather difficult. So I said, fuck it, we ball, and just give her the showcase for herself. And Connor will have a separate video once I make him. So here we are with just Caitlin. You'll notice that this is very different from how Caitlin looks in the TV series, and you're more likely wondering why. Well, this is a good part to segue into that part of the video. Let's dive into Caitlin's Porterverse backstory in full. Caitlin is a 462 passenger engine built around the early 1920s. Which class? No one really knows. She just seems to fit with almost all of them. She often worked in the New England region of the United States, and often stopped by the Big City Railroad. Her career was rather mundane, aside from the occasional derailment once in a blue moon, and she was withdrawn in 1968. She was placed in storage by a new owner shortly after, and began to slowly rust away. A few years later, in 1971, a certain Sir Robert Norrenby II was looking to open his own railway on Sodor, and he was actively looking for engines from around the world. He would eventually come across Caitlin in an auction, and he made sure to win by leaps and bounds. Caitlin was now effectively preserved, but she was in a rather poor shape, and was shipped to Sodor, where she would be restored at Cobblesgate Works under contract with the Northwestern Railway. This is where and when Caitlin would receive special custom semi-streamlining on her sides, as Sir Robert had a sauce off for this design type. Caitlin would also receive a new cardinal red livery with beige and silver accent and trim. She's also fitted with all the British railway regulations like buffers and such, and also the Ulfstead Castle Railway crest on her sides. Caitlin's restoration will be fully complete by 1973, and she was present for the Ulfstead Castle Railway's grand opening in 1974. In 2024, Caitlin is a common sight on the Ulfstead Castle Railway and all of its excursion trains around the heritage site, and she still works there to this very day. Caitlin, as a model, was easily the biggest mod in the entire collection, as when looking at this model, you can tell just how much was added on. Caitlin's model was made from a generic 462 model that was found on eBay for cheap. I forget the brand, but I imagine it's pretty common. I first started work on the tender. The tender was all cosmetic modifications, so it was pretty straightforward. It was just primer, followed by a custom red mix based on Caitlin's TVS color, but it was more red. I never really liked how pink the color was in the show, so I aimed for something a little bit more red for my model. Next, I modified the smoke box door. I took it off the model, and I chopped off the center headlight, and using a bit of tape on the back, and also use super glue to fill in the hole. I know it sounds very archaic and sketchy, but hey, it works. I also made sure to sand down the front to make sure it was smooth. And now came the hardest part of the whole model, the semi-streamlining. I used an index card and a bunch of reference photos, and very tedious measurements to ensure that the pieces fit nicely, and also they match each other too. Once I made sure all the pieces were just about right, I glued them down into place. After that was all done and dusted, I went to the buffers. These are just simply glued on after being painted, and these buffers are designed by the LBSC Thomas. After the bodywork was done, I painted the engine itself in the same red color as the tender. A cleanup with black paint followed the red. And then came the beige and silver striping. This was the most difficult part of the entire modeling process, as I had to make absolutely sure that the line would match up with the cab and the tender. Not to mention the other side of the model as well. It was very tedious, but I managed to get it done. After the beige stripe was done, I went over the edges with a silver Sharpie. After some quick touch-ups here and there, the stripe was done. After all those tedious parts were complete, the model became much easier to finish. After that were the railway crests, which are pretty simplistic. Then came accenting some parts of the model with red, silver, gold, bronze, etc. Once all of that was done, I sprayed the whole model in a matte clear coat. And just like that, Caitlin was done. I'm actually surprised at how well the model turned out given my sketchy ass modeling skills from 2022. I mean, her model has held up pretty well over the years, so I suppose I should give some brief bench updates. Arthur is 99% done. All he needs is his megaphone and he'll be done. James is about 95% done. He also needs a megaphone, but he also needs a smokebox door as well. This has to be 3D printed. Donald is currently being worked on, and Sigrid is on the way. And I will start working on her the moment she arrives. So yeah. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of the Porterverse Workbench. And I shall see you all same time next week.